I will ask permission to stay here so I can talk to you folks and share the presentation face to face. For the board's information, I have distributed letters from Robert Bates, who's the provost at Washington State University, Pullman, in support of this tab, and there is a similar letter from Barbara Couture, who's the dean of the College of Liberal Arts at Washington State Pullman, also expressing support for the tab. I know that some of the speakers, there will be some additional printed information that will be handed out. When you're ready to do that, thumbs up or something, and I'll have one of the staff make sure the board members do that. This was presented to the board for initial consideration at your October meeting. This has been the result of a process that really started in December 2001 when the initial contact between the First Peoples Language Committee and the State Board, primarily through its Professional Development and Certification Committee, got together, and this whole notion kind of sprang forth from there. We've met at least several times, First Peoples Committee representatives with the board's internal committee, and we've developed a proposal for a 3-year pilot project. It's a unique approach, but it is a pilot project to, as typical of pilots, you work out some of the details that you can't answer questions to right now. And in short, the sovereign tribal governments would be responsible for confirming to the board through an application process that individuals of the tribe are qualified to teach their language and culture. It comes before the board for official approval and a government-to-government relationship, and then it's incumbent upon the tribe to work with area, local districts to get these folks into the schools and sharing their wisdom about their language and culture and translating both the Indian students as well as non-Indian students. In the last couple of weeks, some questions have arisen about what provisions, if any, of the federal No Child Left Behind Act that was reauthorized in January of last year. To date, we have not been able to get definitive answers to those questions. We're working on it. I know that Susie Wright and others are in communication with folks back in Washington, D.C. to get some clarification. I've already contacted Donna Foxley, who's the Region 10, which is in Seattle, representative for the U.S. Department of Education, and she is working to try and find some answers to if the high-quality teacher provisions do or do not affect this pilot proposal. Right now, I've not been able to determine, nobody's been able to give me a clear answer, let alone the board. Bobby may or may not want to say something about that. So, in deference to folks who've traveled a great distance, I think that's what I need to share, and you can move to
We're going to take public testimony on the proposal before us. With so many people in the room, I just don't know if folks have had a chance to sign up or is there any official record. Is there one of you that is designated to?
We are doing that. We have 2 going around. You can make copies.
You have something going around?
Yes, we started already.
Okay. Then who is the one that is here?
but I think she's got it.
You're going to?
Let me
Okay.
do the introduction for you.
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
All right.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank everybody, all of our friends and relatives from the Northwest to be here to meet with the Washington State School Board of Education. We have a number of tribes represented here today. We're here to express our concerns about the certification process. Also, it is customary at times like this that before we get into, and my sister here gets into the main work, we want to begin this work with a prayer song to bless and clear the way for all of our friends and relatives here who have traveled far and near to be here today on this very important time and occasion. We are always told that all good things begin with a prayer and a song. The song is the prayer. We ask that this song, this prayer, clear the way for the work that is to take place here. Oh, CCI.
I've asked good Ben from Usk Reservation to lead this, and because the men are always the leaders of the drum, and we get to help them. So.
Oh, CCI. Thank you. Our friends and relatives, Mr. Francis Kaluuya, my brother. I won't tell too much. We went to school together about 5 years ago, a long time ago. I'm so happy that he shared his voice. So that you will know and understand, it is always customary to recognize those that have traveled the farthest. Our relatives here came from the east, following the sun over the mountains, from Spokane to be here with us last night, today, and tonight. And so we've asked our relatives from Eastern Washington to share a blessing song and a prayer, not only for our Indian people, but for our friends and relatives here on the State Board of Education. My sister here will be the main speaker, but I want for the record for you people to know that there are many tribes represented here from all over the Northwest, starting with Spokane to Cawville to Yakima, out to Macaw, Nisqually, Chehalis, Sklallam, Muckleshoot, and moving north to Tulalip, Swinomish, I believe Nooksack, Lummi, and if I've missed any other tribes, I apologize, but you need to know that you have a very broad representation here from both sides of the mountains who are committed to the goals and aspirations of what we're attempting to do here. We also are very indebted, my dear ones, to the First Peoples Language Committee. I think it is important for the record for people to know the hard work that the First Peoples Language Committee have done over the past 3 years, volunteering their time, traveling all over the Northwest on behalf of defining and focusing what it is that we have to do on behalf of the educational and cultural needs of our people. The First Peoples Language Committee is really a grassroots people made up of young and old from different tribes throughout the Northwest. So we're grateful for the amount of work that they have done. My sister here will now ask her to do the main presentation. She will address the issues that we spoke to and have been speaking to for a number of days and weeks and years. Also, she will speak to that we are giving people. We do have gifts that we want to share with our friends and relatives here in Olympia. So I am very grateful for this song. This young lady here has good heart and mind. She's going to share her concerns, use her voice that is a gift from the Spirit to share with you and hopefully bring you closer to understanding what it is that we need to do together, each and every one of us here. O-C-C-I-C-I-A-H. Hey.
White Pislak Bush Pisnak Incha Itzi, Martina Whelshula, Urs Kinkaus, Urs Terkanslikata, Intim Kulau, Sin Aich Ushkuil, Akinlim Kerala, and I just want to say greetings. My name is Martina Whelshula. My given name is Kim Kaus, given to me by my great-grandfather, Enius Seymour, which was my great-grandmother's name, meaning blood touches the ground. And I'm from the Arrowlex Nation, the people who respect the fish. That's my homeland and my people. And I just want to say that I'm very happy to be here amongst all of you today, to be able to stand here and to feel the incredible power of all of the people that are here and all of our ancestors and all of the work that we've been doing and seeing the support and the love and the strength that comes from so many that showed up here today. I just want to thank each one of you for coming, from all of us. You know, this has been hard work and it's been passionate work, and our teachings and our traditions are so important that we all come together in this way. I'd like to introduce the children to be able to come forth. We have some children here that are speakers. Is somebody going to?
These are our little people from the Tulalip Tribes Language Program. They want to say a few words to our friends and relatives here in our language. Now, these are our language teachers, Aliyah and Eliza and Natasha, and they brought their little people, their children with them to share with you our words.
Repeat stop. Shana seems dark. That's lost the chat. I'll take those away.
Oh, Susia. Big we see.
We have a student from Macau that will greet you.
Big we see. You're on.
This is Jeannie Thompson. She said she's a macaw lady from Nia Bay, and that she's taken macaw 2 years in the high school now, and she's in 12th grade. And our language, our Indian languages are very important.
Oh, she's gone.
And then we would like to honor our children, because so much of the work that we do, so much of our heart goes into it, because they're our hope, you know, in our future, and holding in a good way, you know, all of our teachings and our history and the memory of that piece, and that we can pass that on to generations in the future. And so as we all stand here today, it's all ages merge. It's our ancestors, it's those of us, you know, our elders, and those of us, you know, of my age group, and then our descendants, you know, that we look and that we're always working towards. From the beginning of time, Earth cultures have thrived in this land that we call Washington State. Many of those nations are represented here today, and many of the descendants of those original peoples are here today. And in the face of what has been years of methodical, systematic attempts by the government to wipe out what we have left of our cultures, to wipe out what we have left as a world view, of a way of being in the world and understanding our universe. And that our children were taken from their families. They were literally stripped from their families and taken to boarding school and sent off far away. And then families not having the tools to be able to deal with, or the ability or the skills to be able to deal with and understand what's going on with losing our children and what's happening with our families as they're being torn apart. That my people, the Arrowlex, the St. Ives people, were thousands strong in mid-1800s to the late 1800s, and by 1910 we had lost so many that we were down to 150. And that's the history of many of the people that you see in this room today, that we lost so many people in such a short period of time. And it wasn't just one wave of disease and epidemics, it was several waves of them. And there's so much trauma that we carry with us today, that all of this happening at the same time of not only losing our people to such a tragic and such a a devastating, catastrophic loss, but to also lose our languages, for our children to be taught that they cannot speak their language, that they were punished if they were, that they could no longer practice their ways, they could no longer worship in the ways that their ancestors had taught them, they could no longer even look the way of their people, that their hair was cut, that they were given uniforms, and that they were to look as their European counterparts, and so much then was stripped. That our children were being stripped of anything that remotely identified them to their heritage, and our families were stripped of such a precious treasure as our children. And this is something that we have been struggling over the last 200 years in this territory to somehow to heal that wound, to heal that loss. That our language is a living language, and for us to be standing here today, I think in the face of that government policy that wasn't just the government, it was missionaries, it was government people, it was politicians and commissioners and the military. All of these people came together in this collusion. They colluded to take that away in order for us to somehow assimilate into a mainstream European American society. And that the fact that we're standing here today in this room is a testimony, I think. I used to think that it was a miracle, but I think that it's more about a testimony to the resiliency and the strength of our elders and all of you that are here that have passed on the teachings to us, that we can hold that in a good way. And that it really is a testament to that strength of our culture, of our elders, that we can take that and we can continue to perpetuate that. But our biggest challenge today is that our education system is in direct competition with our culture. That our children spend a good amount of hours during the day in a classroom that teaches them that our culture is archaic, that it's superstitious, that it's backward, that it's simple, and that there's a lack of awareness about the sophistication of our knowledge. There's a lack of awareness about the complex constructions of knowledge that our cultures hold, that there are thousands, tens of thousands of years of experience and observation, and that we were thriving as a people, and that this knowledge now can be utilized through the language to transform our society. It can be a catalyst for change, cultural change. If the State Board of Education and the educators of Washington State begin to recognize that we're not a backward people, that we're not simple-minded, that we're not superstitious people who just profess folklore, that in reality what we were able to say in a very simple sentence conveys a very complex, highly sophisticated concepts, that now NASA, scientists from NASA are beginning to seek out the elders around the world, the tribal elders, to help solve the problem of global warming. That we have physicists who are now beginning to see and understand our worldview through their new sciences of quantum physics and field theory. That all of a sudden now science is beginning to recognize that it's incomplete, its knowledge is incomplete, and that maybe after all that tribal people, that the old knowledge, the traditional knowledge of tribal people in the world does have knowledge that scientists were never able to comprehend. And just now they're beginning to make those realizations, and now these scientists are wanting to converse with tribal elders about that traditional knowledge. I'm saying we're not only losing languages here if we don't take a radical step to reclaim them, to preserve them, and to perpetuate the languages. We're losing intellectual diversity. We're losing an ability to bring in new knowledge that can help solve old problems. And it's beautiful knowledge. It's knowledge in interpersonal relationships. It's knowledge about how to be a good relative in this world. It's a knowledge that could really begin to heal a society who needs so badly to want to feel good about themselves, to be able to be respectful in relationships. But it also brings instructions to us about a knowledge about how to relate to this planet, how to heal our universe. And then that's what comes through our languages. That they're not simple, they're not backward, they're not primitive, archaic, and superstitious. That this is knowledge that was articulated very simply, not by simple-minded people, but by very humble people, and people who didn't need to say a whole lot in order to make a point. And so that's why we're here today, and understanding the whole issue and the challenge of understanding the ESEA and how that applies to this WAC. And recognizing that when we begin to look at the issues of highly qualified professionals, that we need to challenge our assumptions about what highly qualified means. Do we mean that we don't think that Native people have the capacity or the knowledge to be able to be good teachers? That we as nations of people who have education in all different ways of life, that we wouldn't have the resources to be able to come together? Or that we are committed, it's our survival depends on that quality professional teaching of our languages. We need, just as much as anybody else, to know that we have qualified teachers out there teaching our children. And that what we're here today is about entering into a new partnership. And I want to invite you just to take in the feeling of this moment and just the celebration that we had last night, the celebration that we've had over the past weeks. I want to give my deepest heartfelt thanks to Linda and Larry and Bobby and Bunker and all of you that have been a part of this journey, because it has been a journey. And it's about learning how we can relate to each other and how we can honor each other. And that we are really trying to, in our own way, show the state and show the education system and elevate the value of our people and our language. And that we are committed to having quality programs. And that we are in this WAC committing ourselves to be in relationship, to work out those issues. That the WAC, it's a pilot so that we can begin. But what we really want to test here is the relationship. This is an historic moment. And I'm so humbled to see all of the nations and all the faces. I'm overwhelmed to see the support of the people that are here today. And everyone brings their own story. They bring their own sadness that comes through the generations. But if you see the faces in here, it's also the hope for our future. And we're asking in this partnership, from government to government, nation to nation, that somehow that we can create a relationship that honors each other and recognizing that we both want the same goal, that we both are on the same side, and that we want to work together towards that goal. And that we're going to be passing around a packet for you to review, which has the Federal Native American Languages Act, as well as resolutions from many of the tribes of the affiliated tribes of the Northwest, different tribes that have brought resolutions and colleges and universities. I mean, we have a lot of support from a lot of people, and which feels really good. I feel like we can stand here in a good, strong place, and from our heart feel that this is where our intentions are and how we want to presence ourselves in your company, in relationship to you. And that we also have, at this time, our teachings about giving. It is so inherent in our culture, that whole notion of always giving. And that our gift giving is about an honoring of this event. It's about a commemoration of what it is that we're about to embark on with the State Board of Education. It's an honoring, and it's our way. The languages and the teachings were given to us as a people, and this is our way then to give back and to give to others, to pass on the goodness of those teachings. And so we would like to, at this time, have the opportunity to pass gifts for you, and just is a way to crystallize this moment. And this milestone, I think, for both the State Board of Education and the nations of Washington State, and just to recognize our appreciation for even welcoming us here and being willing to work with us on the issues that we present with you.
Were there speakers from McCall that wanted to say a few words at this time? If there are, you need to come forward.
My name is Blanchard Matt. I'm the Apple Macaw Tribal Council. I'm here today to witness another occasion here, coming together in partnerships in education. And I believe the partnerships in education is going to pave the way for our language to grow and for our little ones to grow even more so in communicating from their elders. The language that we have is so beautiful. You cannot express it in English language the way our native language is spoken. There are many words in there that express from our heart and our desires what we want to tell you people. And that is that we want to be a partnership in education. And we need all the help we can get from the State Board of Education to help us make this thing grow. So I thank you today for being here, for us to be here to listen. And it's our culture to hand out these gifts in a broad way. Thank you for your attention.
Så kit lite goed adobiasi katlik adobtapid I put it gift of a necklace for you from the Makata.
Thank everyone. I would like to ask Martina and the rest of you to be sure that we get the names and affiliations of the people who are speaking, please, and someone will take responsibility for making sure that we get our names.
You'll get them.
Thank you.
The gifts, the people who have the gifts will come forward, hand them out to our friends and relatives here. Delayla, we have food forward, my daughter. We're going to give a gift.
It's okay.
You're overwhelmed. Thank you.
This is just truly an honor.
You want to say
We have a lot more work to do, but one of the things that they are asking that people sign in, name, pride, what you're doing.
Oh my. Oh my. Martina said she was overwhelmed. You're overwhelmed. Do we have another
My dear ones, this is Fox of Blue, one of our elders who has helped many tribes up and down the Puget Sound on behalf of our language needs. We have been blessed with this gift of our language. She wants to say a few words to you.
I've not only been blessed, I'm an only child, and I have to do it. And I think you need to hear from the living treasure of the state of Washington. Of course you do. That's who I am, and I'm recognized by all of you many, many times, and I thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Because I taught for 15 years at the University of Washington from 1972 to 1987. I chose to retire myself so I could continue the research that it takes for each one of us to busy ourselves preserving all the beautiful things that the first people of this land have left for us. It benefits everybody. Believe me, it does benefit everybody. And for a long time that has not been recognized, but I think that in recent years it has been more and more recognized. And the work goes on, and because in this room there's evidence that many people have devoted their lives to seeing that the language lives. You see with your own eyes, dear ones, that our people don't take it for granted that our ancestors have left us with many, many gifts to pass on. We're not to keep it for ourselves,
we are to share. And the things that we share, dear ones, is important for everybody to recognize. We don't take things lightly because everything we do comes from the Creator. We all know that. My dad said, say what you have to say and shut up and sit down. So that's what I'm going to do. Thank you.
Excuse me, everyone.
Dear ones, we have someone here, Mr. John Pope, would like to say a few words, if you'd be kind enough to step forward. Osia, thank you. Good words on your heart and mind.
Thank you. President May and distinguished members of the State Board, I'm John Pope. I'm with the Office of State Superintendent of Instruction, the Division of Higher Education, Certification, and Community Outreach. I've had the pleasure of being able to work many years on different issues facing our agency and Native Americans. I've also had the pleasure of administering one of the titles that we are now looking at as being one of the complications to this particular pilot of being a reality. And I say that due to the history that having administered that program, and it looks closer to what it was then when I had it than ever before, Title I, that we've had many issues in the past with the federal legislation and state regulations having to come to grips with each other. And I've worked on real tight issues at Seattle changing their DSEG plan. I've worked on the issues of the free and reduced lunch identification accounts and how we allow districts to do it and how we don't. I recognize totally that the feds recognize the details that affect state legislation, our policies, and trying to administer. And the freedom that we give our school districts in the state of Washington is unique. Because it's one of the few states that still allow local control. And when I say local control, and we talk about our government and these nations coming together, then I say we have to look at the spirit of not what is prohibited and get hung up on the technicalities. Because I've worked through the DSEG plans, and we piloted giving construction funds to Seattle, and we changed the disproportionality of figures, knowing that their policy changes would affect thousands of kids. And I say that this is not treating the issue as if we're looking at endorsing people to teach a foreign language. It is a natural language. And we talk about all of these things that we have done in the past that have taken the federal government and say we have some gray matter between what we believe Congress's intent was and how we administer our school systems. We have always worked it out. I've been on each one of those major issues, and I can tell you the bright side of it is that we have the talent in the agency and within our communities and between the feds to come to some reasonable solution. So I ask you, in light of the history of having been able to do that on measures that were more profound in impacting all 300 school districts, to this is a pilot. And if we put it off of the books today, to delay while we get clarification from a government who's facing going to war and have financial issues on their minds, we may not see this issue for 2 years if we're looking for a clean slate. And so I urge you to recognize that this is a pilot. We have the talent in our agency to help deal with the technical issues that you may have felt come to light. And I also promise you that if you do take actions that puts this on the forefront so we have provisions to work with, not hypotheticals, that way the government will have to respond more closely and more expediently to deal with those issues. If we leave it as a proposal, it's never going to see the light of day within the confrontations that we face today that's facing education in the state of Washington and in the nation. So I have been given permission from my assistant superintendent, from our division, to work very closely with other agents, departments in the agency, as well as with the nations, and the federal government to come to some kind of conclusion. And so I urge you to go ahead and accept the passage of these provisions, give us something real in our hands to work with so we can go negotiate and deal with the particularities so we can get to the technical issues and use this pilot as a model to uncover issues that are going to be facing us as we treat the biggest population of employment is minorities, is when we have to deal with the issue of ESEA and getting them in a timeline, get skilled and qualified based on the measures that ESEA sets up, which affects millions of people throughout the nation that are of color that are employed in the education system. So we have bigger challenges than the ones you face today as far as the big picture goes. This pilot could help us unravel some of the answers we have to attack as we approach the bigger problem. So I urge my support to the board. I would like to work with the board as well as with the departments and the nations to help resolve the technical issues that we feel might cloud this issue. I hope that you find the courage in your hearts to go ahead and give us something to work with. Thank you.
We ask that you be patient. This is how our people work. I'd like to call upon Tim Brewer, Tulalip Tribe's tribal attorney. He has worked on both sides of the mountain with the Eastern Washington tribe. We're very honored and pleased that we have him now with us in Tulalip. He would like to share some words and some papers with you. OCO.
Thank you, Hank. I'm currently a reservation attorney at Tulalip, and I've been working with the First Peoples Language Committee. And I would like to commend the board for the efforts in working with the tribes and getting this rule together, this very innovative program. And I know it's very important to the tribes, as you can see by the turnout today. It's a credit to the collaboration that's occurred here that lawyers really haven't had to be too involved in this process. Unfortunately, I was called on Monday and said that a legal issue had raised its head here at the last minute regarding the ESEA amendments. I had a chance to take a look at those, and I am not seeing anything in these ESEA amendments which would prevent the type of obstacles which would merit derailing this project at this point. Federal law is real clear that the teaching of Native American language is a very specific and unique area of instruction. The ESEA deals generally with teacher qualifications, but it does not deal with the unique area of Native American language instruction. What does deal with Native American language instruction is the Native American Languages Act, which sets forth a very clear and specific policy with regard to teaching Native American languages and qualifications for certification for teachers of Native American languages. The Act in part says that it is the policy of the United States to allow exceptions to teacher certification requirements for federal programs on the instruction in Native American languages when such teacher certification requirements hinder the employment of qualified teachers. It also encourages state and local education programs to work with Native American parents, tribes, governing bodies in the implementation of programs to put this policy into effect. The rules that you've developed here that you're considering today put this policy into effect. This is the embodiment of federal policy in the instruction of Native American languages. Any questions that are raised by the new ESA amendments can certainly be solved in light of this very clear and specific policy. Nothing in the ESEA amendments mentions instruction of Native American languages or mentions an intent to defeat the clear policy statement of the federal government in the Native American Languages Act. Therefore, I would urge you to not lose momentum here, to go forward. I believe that any questions that come up with regard to the federal government can be worked out. I know the tribal legal staff would be happy to work with your legal staff to make that happen, but I would urge you to move forward on this very important project. Native American languages, this is not a situation we have a lot of time to wait on. I think it's the time to move right now. Thanks.
I call upon my elder, my sister, Twapa, to say a few words. CCM.
Good morning to all of you. My English name is Patricia Martin. My Indian name is Twapit. Before you, you have a resolution that has been passed by the Affiliated Tribes of Northwest Indians. I've been on the executive board for the Affiliated Tribes of Northwest Indians for about 5 years and just finished that term. And I more recently worked with the superintendent of public instruction for a number of years as a state supervisor for Indian education, and I come from the Yakama Nation in eastern Washington. And I've had about 30 years of background in education, and so I'm familiar with the No Child Left Behind, but also familiar with the Improving America School Acts and Goals 2000. And I know, having been involved with education over the years, from early childhood to Head Start, our Indian education programs, and working as a consultant with our school districts, that when challenges do come up that has been raised, that at the local level and at the community level and at the tribal level, it's been up to the tribes that are here to interpret what those federal regulations say. And we do know that those regulations speak to local control, local decisions that are made. And in our programs, particularly in our Indian education programs, there has, since the Indian Self-Determination Act of the 1970s, a statement that speaks to tribal control as well. And so as tribal members in our tribes, we do take a look at all those legislation, and we do continue to develop our programs in our community sites. I have 2 elders here from the Yakama Nation, well, actually 4 that are here. I'd like them to stand, please, and be recognized. Ella Jim here has worked in our early childhood Head Start programs for a number of years. We have Mavis Kindness, who is our language specialist. Rosemary Miller, teacher at Totney School District, and her husband is here as well. But over the years, and the people that I've worked with in the room, when I was at the superintendent's office, when we met around the state, we would take a look at the legislation and define what it is we want for our children. Just like we are doing today, with school reform in this state, we are still defining what it is we want our children to be able to learn through position papers like the Multicultural Education Think Tank paper that we've been involved with as well. So we are very involved with our children and our grandchildren and our school boards. We're there in the meetings, at the school board meetings, just like we're here with you today. And so I would urge you, like the Affiliated Tribes of Northwest Indians has done, it's not just us here, but also tribes in Oregon, Northern California, Northern Nevada, Western Montana, Idaho, Southern Alaska, and Washington tribes that have approved this resolution. We're made up of 54 tribes when we talk about the Northwest. And in our involvement, you have in here representatives also from higher education that we've been working with. Some of us are on the advisory boards to the University of Washington. When Dr. McIntyre was here, he worked and came out and visited with the tribes, came to our communities, our small communities like White Swan. I don't know if any of you have ever been to our small, rural, isolated communities that some of us come from, or in the urban communities. We had a president who came out and continues to come out annually to visit us in our reservations. And I would urge you to meet on our reservations as a State Board of Education, to come out and learn from us as well. We have a lot to share, a lot to teach you as well with our children, just like you've seen here. I want to close by talking, taking a look at the preamble. The Affiliated Tribes has been around about 50 years. We recently celebrated our 45th anniversary. Our 50th anniversary is coming up. But when we take a look at the preamble, that preamble was put together by our elders. And when you interpret that in the language, just like you've heard here, there will be a lot of heartfelt statements and about the vision that our tribal leaders have for us. The preamble states, "We, the members of the Affiliated Tribes of Northwest Indians of the United States, invoking the divine blessings of the Creator upon our efforts and purposes, in order to preserve for ourselves and our descendants rights secured under Indian treaties and benefits to which we are entitled under the laws and Constitution of the United States and several states, to enlighten the public for a better understanding of the Indian people, to preserve Indian cultural values and otherwise promote the welfare of the Indian people, do hereby establish and submit the following resolution that is coming before you." And in our affiliated tribes, we not only deal with the issues of education, we also deal with economic development, healthcare needs that we have, natural resources, sovereignty, and so we have several subcommittees. And We meet 3 times a year, and I would invite you to our next meeting, which is going to be in Portland, and we move around the Northwest and we meet where the tribes are and come forward with these kind of position statements. So please join the Affiliated Tribes of Northwest in endorsing this as well. Thank you.
As we said earlier, we begin the work with a song and a prayer. We close this work with a song and a prayer for each and every one of us in this room. I want to invite each and every one of our friends and relatives here out to the Skokomish Longhouse tonight. Dinner will be served at 7 o'clock. There'll be more work to be done there. We would like members from the school board to join us and anyone else. There'll be some traditional food there. First Peoples Language Committee, the Skokomish tribe, the Muckleshoot tribe, all the tribes in here have been working together to put these past 2 days and nights together. So I hope that you can find it within your heart and mind to join us tonight on the Skokomish Reservation, the traditional longhouse. At this time, I'd like to call on our elder from Lummi to sing a song, a prayer song, closing song, to finish the work that we've been so honored and pleased to be allowed to do here today. Thank you.
Potential hurdle to overcome with the between what we're trying to do today and federal issues. But I think that I can say before maybe share the confidence with some others that this hurdle can be overcome. We do know that we have to work toward that end. There is some work to be done to make this happen. But we are all going to work together to comment.
Yes, Madam Chair. I know that my colleagues don't need a lot of push to adopt this initiative, but it's just a unique situation to have distinctly qualified people for a distinct subject area and creating their own endorsement because they are the experts and the only ones who can qualify someone to teach their language and their culture. And knowing that we can trust each tribe to find the very best system for certifying their own people to do that. And I'm excited that children in this state will have this opportunity to learn another language and another culture. And I know that this enhances student learning for all our kids, which is what we are about. So I look forward to this adoption.
Thank you. Other comments?
I just want to say that in addition to benefiting our Native American friends and relatives, that this will help also, hopefully, help us understand the importance and the value of language and its connection to culture. Do not separate language from culture. Language is where you take the culture. The culture is where you take the language. So hopefully this will help folks understand that in some other areas.
Two things. One, just to note for the record, we did get late yesterday morning another letter from WSU, this one from the Judy Mitchell, who's the Dean of the College of Education, expressing full support for the pilot program. And when you move to roll call, if I could have the chair's permission to go for Tom Parker and obviously Ken Ames, that they're excused.
Further comments?
Bobby Vang?
Yes.
Buck Evans?
Yes.
Linda Lamb?
You betcha.
Frank? Yes. Nancy Pike? Ken Ames is excused. Dana White?
Aye.
Carolyn Wallace?
Yes.
Warren Smith?
Aye.
Tom Parker is excused. There are 8 votes for, 0 against, 2 excused, motion carries.
very excited about this. We want to take this program forward. We're very pleased to be a part of it and to actually make this happen. We know that we are not nearly as pleased as the people in the audience. We have worked so hard on this.
Card to Hank, who, as I understand, I was not here, but I understand he was here. But I kind of, I fibbed my note to him a little in advance. I said, may the news of today help you to a speedy recovery.
Is he doing all right?
Yeah, he's being released and he'll go home and have his recovery. Well, but he's feeling better. Good. And we're sorry he couldn't be here. Oh. We wanted to go break him out.
Well, his spirit is with us. The spirit has prevailed.
I have 3 students from the Wahelu Tribal School. So the Moccasin newsletter now will begin and they'll have it announced on their TA system.
Excellent.
Well, donate good government to government relations with your local school boards.
We do, in our culture, have a section where when we receive something this great, we either sing a receiving song or make a thank you presentation. And I like to do both. I don't have a drum. And I promise you, I'll just make it real short so we can then be excused, right? And I want to sing the same song. It has the song of the stars. It has the language in it, as many of the songs I sing do. And so I'm going to sing it. And just so you know that many times receiving songs are sung by one person. And that's what's in my heart. Thank you. This is in the language. And I sang it for you the other day. And I hope it echoes in your ears for a short while. In gratitude. And we'll just go like this. One more time. Thank you. We must move forward with this. You always see
Okay.
Are you on your way back?
Congratulations.
Now I know strong tears.